Once you've discovered the success of my dovetail saw when it comes to cutting dovetails, I want to introduce you to the next most critical piece, and that's the dovetail marking knife. Now, this is the way it comes. It has a traditional blade, which is for when we used to actually trace the cut dovetail into the pin. But we've got a better method. It includes a sawtooth blade. Now, this little blade is exactly the same as the dovetail saw. Same thickness of saw plate, same set on the teeth. This is our latest version, actually. We're always working to improve these things, and we've changed it from a 15 TPI to 22. Some folks were complaining that it was grabbing. Now it shouldn't grab at all. So what you have to do when it arrives, if you want to use the sawtooth blade, is take your knife apart. It's two-piece construction, and there's a spot inside where you can store the traditional blade should you ever want to go back to that. And there are times when you may need to. Right inside here, you can lay that blade. When you put this in, there's two little pins. They're actually half pins, no pun intended when we're talking dovetails. Put that in place. Make sure the seam is tight. Put your two screws back in and you're ready to go. Now those teeth are also filed with a negative rake. That means the part that normally does the cutting is filed, instead of being 90 degrees, it's back about 25 degrees, which means it'll ride over the wood without grabbing. And all you want it to do is just to make the beginning of a kerf to make it easier when you start cutting the pins. So offset your board, your tail board, by the thickness of one saw kerf, and then holding that firmly, take that sawtooth blade, set it down inside the kerf. Now, because it's the exact width, it's not going to move side to side. And when you drag it through, it'll leave a mark in the wood that is the exact size of the kerf that you're going to do with your dovetail saw. And if you want, you can make several passes, and that'll just serve to deepen the kerf to make it even easier to start when you start cutting your pins. Now, you need to follow my video on how you actually do this, but you've got to do one side of the tails before you offset and do the other side. If you've used the first version we came out with, you're going to find that this is a lot smoother and easier to operate. And once you've done that, you've got a perfect kerf that you can come along, set your saw in there, and then easily make that cut. Makes dovetailing a piece of cake. Check it out. You ready to do it? Yeah, why don't you do it?
Test, test,
You're
test.
going to tell what the difference that you see. You're an American.
Can you go into a different room so it feels like we're Skyping you in?
No, we'll just do it right here.
We're live, let's go.
Hey, are we up and ready?
Yeah.
Hi folks, welcome. I saved my talking for tonight. This is our live YouTube workshop where we use it as a means of raising funds for our Purple Heart Project, which I'll give you a quick update. So as you know, borders have been, closure of the Canadian-US border has been extended to the end of September. They've been doing that ever since March. They give us 30 days, and then before the 30 days is up, they extend it again. So I expect we're not going, in anticipating that this wasn't going to happen this year, we moved all of our classes to 2021. That's both civilians and military. Now, we always want to be able to bring in some more military. So what we did is we added an additional class that will run in April. We're also moving into a new classroom. We're building a brand new one out back. And we're going to increase our capacity to 7 vets and 7 civilians each class, which means that will allow us to bring in an additional 13 combat wounded vets next year, in addition to the ones that were already chosen for 2020. And we'll have additional at least 13 spots for civilians. When are we going to post that, Jake? Any idea?
No.
Sometime soon, you'll be able to go in there and register and save a spot. There'll be one class every month, April through October. Introductions. Jake's on the camera. They'd like to see you. Frick is behind the microphone and making sure everything works. Rex is there in security. Megan is also going to be our guest tonight. She's going to tell us from an American perspective, quotations, American perspective, what she sees as a result of in these vets from the day they arrive. She's usually with us when we pick them up in Bangor until the day they leave. And that'll be interesting. Hopefully she'll keep a dry eye, but I don't think so. It's quite an emotional thing. Manoli's going to be back. Manoli will be in about an hour and 15 minutes. Going to do 3 original songs for us tonight. And we're going to award the guitar tonight. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss that. So also your... oh yeah, somebody said, where's the money going? Well, where's the money going? All the PHP donations. We're not spending any of it right now. But what we do with it is we use it to pay for all of the flights, including the flight for Super Dave and Colonel Luther and the vet that we bring back. So we have a program where we're just implementing it for the first time. We bring in one previous vet from a class to help teach each class in the future. It gives us a chance to reconnect. So we cover their airfare for all those guys. We cover their transportation from Maine up to here. We cover their hotels. We cover all of their meals. We're actually going to do all 3 meals here at the shop from now on. And we send each vet home with approximately, it probably works out to somewhere between $3,300 and $3,500 worth of tools. Now we have a program where, thanks to Jack Lane, we build a bench. Our volunteers, civilian volunteers, actually it's not just civilians because a lot of them are vets. I know Marshall, isn't Marshall building a bench for one of the previous vets? And Marshall was in our class. He was in our first class. So we provide a bench for each combat wounded vet. We cover the costs of the vise and the bench dog. The civilians pick up all the other costs, including building it and getting it to them. And I tip my hat, even though I don't wear one, to those guys. This has been a phenomenal program. We're reaching back and trying to make sure that we provide a bench to all of the guys and gals who have been in our class in the past. If you happen to be watching tonight and you're one of them, and I have not reached out to you, time's limited, you please reach out to me. And yes, you do deserve it. Let us get you a bench. We have more volunteers than we have people in need of a bench. So I'm going to repeat that one more time. If you are a combat wounded vet that has been to one of our classes as one of our scholarship vets, and you would like to have a bench, just let us give you a bench. Let these people feel good about doing something for you. Contact me, please. Contact me directly, rob@RobCosman.com. That's my personal email. If you're a vet watching tonight that's been to one of our classes, we'd love to acknowledge you and give you a shout out. Megan's going to be watching for it, but what you have to do when you do the comments is tell your name and that you're a combat wounded vet and what class you were in, and then she'll shout it out to me, and she has permission to interrupt me anytime when somebody speaks up. I know Mark Smith is already out there. Hello, Mark, brother. We missed you. You're going to come on back. Hurry up. We're going to do a quick Q&A. I read through the questions, and we had some really good questions. I said, frick, shoot, we've got enough to do 10 hours. We won't do 10. Say hello to Angie. Ken Anthony, I don't know if Ken's on with us tonight. Colonel Luther is off gallivanting in the woods somewhere. Has he got a foam sword and that thing? What?
I said literally he is.
Yes. So he won't be with us tonight. So if you're on, pick up the slack, please, on answering the questions. Well, am I forgetting? I got a few little things I want to show you real quick. If you look at our ugly ceiling, so we're in the process of having blown in all of our ceiling after Jake and I did all that work of putting in that styrofoam. It wasn't enough. Can't keep the place cool in the summer, and you have to have an auxiliary heater in the winter. So they've been doing that. If you see some dust in here. I also want to show you a few other things. I know you love wood, so I'd like to be able to show you this. So we sold this one today. We have a customer in Honolulu that bought this pink ivory saw today. That was $1,100. Here's so I got to show you this. I got a few things to show you. If you come over here, We haven't posted yet, have we? So sometime next week, we're going to post a YouTube video where we cut up that $500 Vera wood log. So my friend Mel, who runs Exotic Woods in Burlington, Ontario, if you want wood that you just can't find elsewhere, and I need him to improve his website, but contact Mel at Burlington Woods, Exotic Woods in Burlington. They'll ship to you. But they have probably the largest selection I have ever seen under one roof. It's actually under two roofs. But if you look up there, right above the TV screen, there's a $500 Vera wood log that Jake bought it. Picked up one of the last times we were in Ontario. And it sat there right behind the grinder. I was nervous to cut it up, so we finally did. We sliced it up.
It was actually Willie's chopping block for a while.
Yes, Willie. He almost got chopped over that. But if you haven't seen Vera wood gets, it's a Super Dave wood. It's got this beautiful emerald green color, but when you mill it, it's actually yellow. And that, I actually, in the video that you'll see next week, which we only shot a few days ago, I had planed that and it turned yellow, and it's already back to being green. So, we got a lot of good timber out of it. And that's a piece of cocobolo. Got a lot of good timber out of it, so we'll be able to make some handles. So here's the one that I'm just working on, and that's just in the process of going green. It's got more time to go. Here's a English walnut handle that's sold, just went. I think this is one of the nicest woods. This is Pacific Yew, and it has the most incredible feel. It's actually a coniferous. However, it's extremely hard. I would put it up there with southern yellow pine, and if any of you have ever walked on a southern yellow pine floor, you know how hard that wood is. Now look at this one. This is sold as well. Fellow that I've been talking to for the last few days. That is a gorgeous piece of cocobolo.
I think that's from Ahmed.
Is it?
Yep.
Oh, that a boy,
As
Ahmed.
it is.
Now here's a piece of kingwood, and you get a little hint of the sapwood on that side, and then you get a lot of it on that side. Very unique piece. That one is sold as well.
Also from Ahmed.
Yes. Ahmed's the man. And here's one. This is sold as well. It's really dark. You almost have to be outside to appreciate it, but this is a piece of Macassar ebony. Just happened to be working on those in the last week or so. And there was something else over here. Oh, yeah. So tonight, what we're giving away... Rex made this. So Rex has now had learned to use the lathe, and he's been the one that's doing the making the marking gauges. I make the wooden ones. However, he made this one on his own. So this is a combination of bird's eye and dyed.
Spectra ply.
What's it called?
Spectra.
Spectra ply. Yeah. So we'll give this away tonight. And thanks to my friend in Florida, who said prizes were caused more excitement than gift certificates. So that's tonight's giveaway. And if we get a big response, and we'll throw something else in. Hey, where's that black maple? Is it on your desk? Did it come back in? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I thought I brought it back in here.
Rex?
I put it back on the shelf.
Over here?
I thought I did.
Oh, yeah, you did. So this is really cool. So Sean Mahaffey is a friend of mine. Sean provides us with our resin impregnated wood. So I had been asking him what he could do with maple and dyeing it black. So this is the first one, and it's funny how some little patches of blonde kick in, but really unique wood. So if we get up to,
That's sold.
Well, I have a few more. Actually, there's two of these that are sold as well. We'll give that away as well. We'll talk about it a little more as we get into this. All right, am I forgetting anything? I'm out of shape. We've been offline for a couple weeks. What? Yeah, I already talked about Manola's coming. Okay, let's do the first question, Frick. I want you to fire these at me fast so we can get through a lot of them, because there were some really good ones in there.
All right. First question comes from Terry Nicholson in Big Canoe, Georgia.
That's the name of the town, Big Canoe?
I guess so. Yeah. And he says,
Right next to Small Kayak.
He says, it seems you prefer thin kerf from normal table saw blades. Is there a specific reason? I've been under the impression that thin kerf blades can flutter a bit, causing slightly rougher cuts.
Yep. So the reason I like a thin kerf, come on over here and we'll show you. First of all,
Do you want to show them a regular curve?
yeah, we'll get both. The nice thing about a thin kerf is you don't waste as much wood. And if you're cutting
On
up,
the left
what did
side
we
of that box.
what did we
Oh, there's magnetite.
what did we figure that Vera wood, those planks, each piece of Vera wood we got?
Was worth?
Yeah. How many did we get out of the log? 5? I think we got 5 usable pieces. So a piece of wood,
On the left side.
a piece of wood that measured probably, was it 24 or 30? 30 inches by about 7 by an inch thick, it's cost $100. So if I can get away without, no, I need both, without giving away or losing a whole bunch of wood, I'm going to do it. So, A, less waste. B, it requires less horsepower because you're not removing so much material. Now, here's the problem. Run out. Run out is what happens when the blade wiggles side to side as it's running. So that's going to depend a lot on your saw. If you're using a good saw, you probably won't have to worry about that. And they make stabilizers. I'll see if I actually have one here. And if you don't have these, I would suggest that you get a pair. Stabilizers are a steel collar that fits over the blade. I don't know. Yeah, I do. So when you put your blade on, before you put the nut on, you put that. Now that's a standard one. The other ones are even bigger than that, and they'll help stabilize the blade so that you don't. Now you're going to lose a little bit of depth of cut because, as you can imagine, like I said, that's the standard one. So if you get one out to here, you're going to lose a little bit in your depth, but for the amount that you're going to use it, it's worth putting on. And these are the ones that I use and promote. So here, if you want to see it. This is the standard blade, which has an 1/8 inch kerf. And this is the thin kerf, which is 3/32. Quite a bit lighter. I have absolutely no problem at all promoting it. I think it works great. Never had an issue. And like I said, that depends on your saw. If you've got a cheap saw, then you're probably going to have some problems. But if you've got a decent saw, you're good to go. That's the reason I like them. Next.
All right, I got one from the chat. This comes from Peter. Well, first of all, we had a question if you ever wear pants.
No.
Okay.
Yes, he does.
Oh, I have. Church. I wear pants to church.
And about -15 lately.
Well, okay, you get down around -15, -20 with the wind blowing, yes. But typically year-round. I like the freedom. I'm up and down and all over the place, and I just can't stand being overheated. That's it.
All right, so Peter only wants to know, is there any advantage of using a wooden plane, drawing it towards you as opposed to a conventional Western style plane?
Well, all right, so when I'm using a scrub plane, and we're teaching a class, and we're really going at it hard, sometimes I've injured my shoulder. We were shooting a video one time, I remember, and I pulled something in my shoulder, and it just almost dropped the plane right there, but we had to finish. So the nice thing about a scrub plane, if you need to, you can pull it. So instead of pushing, hold on to that knob. Now you have to learn where to put the force. But it's doable. And I'll sometimes do it just as a means of giving my those muscles a rest. On my smoother, I tend not to. I'm very much Western style woodworking. And if you want to do it the other way, you can, but my preference is Western. That's the one exception where you might see me pulling a plane as opposed to pushing. Good question. Next.
All right, this comes from Bill McCracken in Cleveland, Ohio. He says, I need a vise.
Bill?
Yep. I need a vise and was going to build a Moxie vise. What do you think about them?
Okay, so actually we're going to do a video on that. I did a YouTube, I don't know, a couple years ago, Dovetails on the Cheap. I was getting so much hassle and bad negative comments about expensive tools. I said, fine, we'll show them what you do with nothing but junk. So I had a $5 or $6
Coping saw.
no,
Which one?
not a coping saw.
Well, I don't know which one you're talking about. Then.
What do we use?
Well, you're talking about for a dovetail saw?
Yeah.
Hacksaw.
Hacksaw. I sharpened up a screwdriver, had a hunk of 2x4 for a mallet, and it was more of a tongue-in-cheek. And they even said, oh yeah, but look at the bench you worked on. So a Moxon vise is a good way, not convenient, but it's a good way, better than the cheap bolt-on vices that are on most benches. It's a good way to hold on to your piece of wood. So you've got a flat piece here, you've got a piece here. You can make it as simple as doing it with a couple of pieces of threaded rod. And you've got a hole going through both of these pieces. Make it as wide as you want. You put your board that you're going to dovetail in there, and then you simply clamp the two pieces so that it's held across its entire width. Takes a little bit longer to put it together. Now, one of the nice advantages is if your back is sore and you have a low bench, you're sitting. You can sit it up here. You can have it at whatever height you want, in order to more easily cut your dovetails without having to bend over at the back. So I have no problem with it. I just think that the traditional Scandinavian style shoulder vise is the best apparatus for supporting your workpiece when cutting dovetails. You put your board in. There is no obstructions. There's no bars. You put your board in, and your nice big heavy jaw pushes against the side of your bench. Doesn't take a lot of effort, but it is firmly held everywhere. There's no vibration when you're sawing. It's a beautiful thing. So that is my preference. Moxon vise, M-O-X-O-N, is a good second. And if anybody asks questions about other vices, I'll take that even further. Next.
Okay, I'm on mute. All right, this one comes from Rich Milici from Agawam, Massachusetts. He says, how critical is moisture content when you are choosing stock? Are you looking for absolute uniformity, or do you use a meter?
Really good question, Rich. Just before you do that, Frick, did anybody put a link in for donations?
I will do that.
All right, remember, if you want to help with the Purple Heart Project, I always say the number one thing we look for, I'm coming back to you, Rich, the number one thing we look for is people talking about it so that the individual who needs our help will find out. And they typically don't find it on their own. It's usually a relative or a friend that knows of them, knows of their situation, and that's how they're contacted. Number two, if you want to, you know what? I'm going to say this. We don't need money. We don't need your money. We would figure out a way to do it without anybody's help. But that is not the reason why I'm asking you. I do this because of the way it makes me feel. There is no substitute for knowing that you've done something to change someone's life. And if you're sitting in Hawaii and I'm in New Brunswick teaching the class, there's not a lot you can do. But if you want to finance and help somebody get here and feel great about it, then go right ahead, be our guest, and we try to make it as convenient as possible. Yes, it's easier if other people chip in. Many hands make, what's the expression?
Many hands make light work. Many
hands make light work. But more important than that, it's about giving people the opportunity to give back. Why do you think we had so many people respond to the Bench Builders Brigade? We were looking for 36. We had to shut it off at 85 because we had more volunteers than we had benches to give out. And it's because people want to be able to do this. So that's that. Now, Rich, your question. This is the best and the most accurate way to do this. If you pay attention to what I'm about to say, you may... What?
Well, we should do that on camera.
I know.
Well, you need the...
Okay, Rex, grab the jump up there, please. What do we need him to get?
We need that and
the whole log?
No, just the second piece from the top. But we also need the scale.
Find the scale. Does he know where it is? Rich, you're going to get a lot. You're going to get a good one.
Rex, it's the one with the tape on it.
Yeah. So, back to what I was saying before I was interrupted. If you pay attention to this, you may never have a problem with unexpected wood movement. And I say this so much, but you know what? It needs to be said every time. This is a piece of wood. And this piece of wood, hello, Jake. This piece of wood absorbs moisture or gives off moisture. So if I were to weigh that right now, and it weighed 1 pound, and it's 6% moisture content, that means 6% of that 1 pound is actually water. Some people, go ahead, make a little more noise. It always amazes me. We have a central heat pump. And when you turn it on air conditioning in the summer, the little drain thing is plugged, so I've got a big bucket underneath there and I have to empty it twice a day. And as I'm carrying this 5-pound pail of water to dump down the toilet, I think to myself, that water came out of the air. There's that much water in the air surrounding us. Well, I could take a fair bit of water out of this, even though it appears to be a dry piece of wood. So you have to pay attention to that, because if there's more wood and more moisture in there than there is in the air, then it's going to give off moisture. And when it gives off moisture, it's going to change its shape. And if you bring this dry piece of wood into a very damp room, it's going to pick up moisture. And when you add moisture to it, it's going to expand. The cells have to get bigger because they now have more moisture in them. And I should have said it, when they give off moisture, they shrink. So this piece of wood is constantly going to be getting wider and narrower, thicker and thinner, but it's not going to change its length. So how do you do that? Well, you buy your lumber, you have no idea where it's been. Yes, you know it came from a tree and eventually a mill and then to you. But I used to buy my lumber from a place in St. John, and their roof was full of holes. You'd get in there and there'd be puddles, mud puddles, and here's your kiln-dried lumber. It was kiln-dried when it arrived. You couldn't say that a week later. So if you didn't get there the day that it arrived, good luck. You had air-dried lumber. So what you do is you bring your lumber into your shop and you weigh it. Now, this is not a very expensive scale, is it, Jake? Any idea what this cost?
Like $700-800.
Dave gave this to us?
Yeah.
Okay, how do I set it? Why does it say 0.01? All right. Why does it say a -2?
There.
So I took this piece of cherry and I put it on here, and I would record that today. I would write down the date, and I would say, this is a sample out of the pile of lumber that I just brought into the shop, 461. 461 on August, what, 21st? And then on next week, I would weigh it again, and I would see what happens. Well, when we cut up this log, my single biggest concern was, here you have a very, very dense hardwood and waxy. This is not going to give off moisture very quickly. That's why whenever you buy exotics, they always have a wax coating on the end, because it will lose moisture out the end grain a lot faster than it will off the side. So if you don't treat the ends somehow to slow that off-gassing or getting rid of, well, it's a gas, then what's going to happen is you're going to get severe end checking. Well, here we have this great big log, and in that form, it's not going to lose moisture very fast. So I was afraid we cut into it, and we're going to be in trouble. So on August 17th, we weighed this.
You're going to take the tape off.
Why?
The tape wasn't part of the measurement.
Well, we're getting sticky. August 17th, which was how long ago? Was that last
4
weekend?
days.
4 days ago. It weighed 3771 grams. So let's see if it's changed. How do you do? I'm not the one that does this, by the way. 3771. Okay, so now it's down 3761.
You're going to get a new piece of tape.
You're making this difficult.
It's only going to stick once.
So this is obviously
It's lost 20 grams.
20 grams since we cut it?
Yep.
Why? Because there was another measurement?
Yep.
Why didn't you save that one? It's no good if we don't know what it was.
Well, then write it.
Well, what was it? What was the original one?
3780.
So it was 3780. And approximate date?
Would have been last Saturday, so 15th.
So 15th. And then on the 17th, it was down to 3771. And today's the 21st, and it was down to what? 3761?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so what do these numbers mean? Well, it's giving off moisture. And I'm just going to keep checking it. And at some point, it's going to start to gain weight. And then it'll lose, and it'll gain, and it'll lose. And at that point, it has reached equilibrium. That means it is the same as the surrounding atmosphere. And that's when it's going to be stable. Between now and then, it's not.
Now the rate that that board is losing moisture, is it fairly dry?
What's happened? What did Dave say?
They said we're just making numbers up.
Of course we are. It's all about content. I can't answer that question, Jake, because Verawood is...
Well, we could ask Dave.
We could ask Dave the expert. Maybe he'll weigh in. Super Dave is on there. I hope he'll be answering some questions. Some woods are going to lose it a lot faster. In fact, if you look over here, when we were last year or 2 years ago, when did we get that cedar? We were finishing off one of the rooms out there, getting ready for finish the classroom off. And we bought a bunch of native cedar. And the guy we bought it from told us it was dry. Well, it came to us. Did we have to rip it? No, they had just ripped it. So we had a plain side and a rough side. We ran that through the thickness planer, and there was water squeezing out of it. It was terrible. So this is a very, very light wood, and that stuff would lose moisture a lot quicker than that Vera wood. So I have no idea how wet the Vera wood is based on how much it's lost. So I can't answer that. But that is the best way to determine when your wood has reached equilibrium. Next question, Frick.
Okay, so this one comes from the chat as well. It's from DJ Smith. He says, I have two Stanley number 5 planes. Would like to open up the throat with a file on one of them. Advisable or no?
Yeah, you got to remember, what are they, number 5s?
Yeah, Stanley number 5.
So they're a dime a dozen. I mean, there was literally millions of them produced. It would be the most common plane. I think it's actually more common than number 4. So, you know, unless it belonged to your great-great-grandfather, it can be bought on eBay at any time of the week for $20 to $30. So don't worry about that. Now, that said, if you look at the throat on most planes, now this is a brand new one, but if you look at the throat, and what I'm talking about is this opening between the arrow, the point of the arrow, and the blade, and I'm painting the blade black. Okay, that's the throat. What you want this surface of the plane to be nice and sharp. Now, if you were to look this way, when I say sharp, I mean it's this point right here where this surface in there meets the sole should be nice and crisp. And that will serve to put nice downward pressure on the wood fiber directly ahead of the cutting edge to help hold those fibers in place for when the grain reverses on you. On most older planes, if they've been used at all, that mouth, that throat, that edge right here usually is all rounded over just from use and abuse. So you could always stand to go in there and just file back, not that much, but file back until you can get a nice sharp line right across there.
By sharp, you mean
By
square.
sharp, I mean, what do I mean by sharp?
Square.
No, I'm going to show you what I mean by sharp. That is not sharp. That is sharp. Okay? And that's what we want to do. We wanted to bring it like this so that it's putting pressure right there. On this, the pressure's somewhere underneath. I can't get to it. I can't get my blade right to that contact point because it's rounded over. This one, I could get the blade right to the contact point. That's what I mean by sharp. You know, what angle is sharp? Doesn't matter. I think sharp has more to do with how crisp is that line where those two surfaces meet. So yeah, go ahead, do it. If you need to do it to open up, what was the original? Read the question again, please. I got a little off track.
He said, I have 2 Stanley No. 5 planes. Would like to open up the throat with a file on one of them. Advisable or no?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now the only thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you keep it square across this way, and when you're filing it, the edge that's important is this one. You want to keep your file make sure the front door is open for Manoli. Rex, please. Yep. You want to keep your file so that it is square to the sole. You don't want to be filing this way. You could file that way a little bit if you want, but anything you do like that is going to make that edge, anything you do to take away from that, if you do this, you're not going to have as much metal behind the edge and you're going to make it a little weaker. So keeping it square is ideal.
Also,
What?
you always want to file away from the sole.
Yeah, yes. If you file in, then your burr is going to be on the inside, not out on the outside. But you could take it off too. Okay, next.
So, go ahead, Megan.
Who do we have?
Gary Burnett.
Hi, Gary. Always here, brother.
Yeah, very faithful. Mark is here.
Gary, I'm starting to think you don't have anything else to do on a Saturday night. Mark Smith. I said hi to Mark
Yeah,
at the
okay.
beginning.
Danny.
Danny Bell.
Yep.
Hey, dude, Danny, make sure you guys check out Danny. How do you find Danny? How come I find Danny on Facebook?
The Hardwood Grove.
Just search for the hardwood.
The
Grove.
Hardwood
Hardwood
search
Grove.
the Hardwood Grove. So
On
Danny's
Instagram and Facebook.
on Instagram and Facebook.
And YouTube.
as
And
well.
YouTube.
Yep.
So Danny, I've just been watching. Danny's doing this river table where they're doing I didn't see all of it. I caught bits and pieces. They've got some mountain range and they've got the water flowing. It's pretty cool. I saw that.
Oh, and he was like painting the.
Yeah, painting the.
Yeah, that was really cool.
It's a conference table he's doing. So check it out. That's Hardwood Grove on Facebook.
Or Instagram or YouTube.
Or
and,
Instagram or YouTube.
Kevin Burris.
And also hello to the girls and to Stinker. Kevin, hey brother.
Mm-hmm.
Kev, I just saw some. What did Kevin just make? You just posted it. Oh yeah. I wonder if that's the idea that I gave him. The dog food, the dovetail. Only Kevin's dogs have dovetailed feeding bins, but he made some boxes too.
Philip.
Philip,
Lawrence.
Phil Lawrence. Hey Phil, how are you?
And Jake.
Jake Trolla. Jake. Good to have you, Jake. Okay.
All right. This one comes from Boris. He's in the chat. And he's building one of your benches. And he's building the shoulder vise. And he wants to know why the spacer block between the vise arm and the bench core has to be cross-grained.
Okay. So Boris is talking about this piece right here. Now, Boris, I'm going to think about this because I simply repeated the way it was done without questioning it.
Well, you couldn't go the other way.
Well, the first problem is there's no movement.
If you went the other way, you would have the expansion of the wood pushing this way.
Yeah, but
Where
you
would
got
it go?
that happening there too. So in explaining how I do it, Boris, hopefully I'm going to answer your question. So let me go through. So we've got a lot of cross-grain construction going on here. By the way, this is going to be some maple burl handles that I'm in the process of working on, and that's a nice piece of English walnut. So we've got long grain right here on the end cap, and we've got long grain right here on this arm. We've got this block, grain's running this way, and we've got the bench, and the grain is running that way. So this piece is going to expand and contract this way. This piece is not going to expand. This piece is going to expand and contract this way. This piece is not going to expand. So when I built this bolt goes back to about here. And there are 3 splines. 1, 2, 3 splines connecting this to this. And those splines are 1/4 inch, maybe be thicker than I think they are. I think they might even be 1/2 inch.
I don't think they were half inch.
A half? Let's say the 3/8. 3/8 inch maple splines. So a spline means there's a groove cut in this, and there is a mating groove cut in that, and there's a floating spline that sits in there, and the three of them keep this nice and flush. So those splines, and also I will tell you right now that there's at least 2 splines connecting this piece to that. So this is a dry fit. There may have been a little bit of glue right here, but the rest of this is allowing this to move. So it's a dry fit. There is, this bolt is going through, this 3/8 bolt is going through a 3/8 hole, and it's glued from about here to here. The rest of this is all floating, it's dry. This bolt, which does the same thing as this one, is sitting in a larger diameter hole on this piece. So this is allowed to go, all of the movement, what I wanted to do is control all of the expansion of the core of the bench is going to go that way. And we compensate for it because this ramp, which isn't going to expand this way, has a piece in there that is spring loaded, and that keeps that gap closed. Pretty cool. You ought to see the video to watch to understand that. So this movement can go this way and back, taken care of by the extra large hole, no glue in the splines. Over here, this is glued maybe just to there, and same thing here, and this is allowed to expand out and back, again, dry fit. There is a bolt that goes through here and all the way over, and that too is in a large diameter hole to allow this to move without any obstruction.
So why couldn't you
Now,
turn that
if you turn that around, yeah.
Okay, so you're not anticipating this portion of the bench to move. You're allowing the rest of this, right?
Right.
You'd have to do this, have that same principle, but it would have to start here.
Well, hold on a second. Here, okay, so here's the, yeah, you have to come down to this end to understand it. So this is my tail vise, and that block has to be free to move this way. So this is a weak argument. But I didn't want this dimension to change at all. So again, the bolt is right here. It's glued right here. All the expansion goes out that way. In other words, this could possibly jam on me. So I don't want that dimension to change at all. So whatever I do here has to work down there as well. Could you have turned this piece this way? Well, that's going to throw things off because now you're going to have that much wood that's going to be expanding because this is across the width, this is in width, and then this would be in width. But I'm not giving you the argument that I want. I'll try to think about that a little bit more. But I built the bench the way it was designed, Frank Claus's design actually, and I didn't question it. And I just made sure that there was no, whatever you do, you cannot restrict wood from moving, or you're going to deal with cracked wood, or you're going to get situations where things close in on you and it binds and won't move. Sorry, that was not as good an argument. That was not as good an answer that I would like to give you. But that's all you're getting right now.
Not to jump back, but Super Dave finally got back to his expertise.
Oh yes, on Vera
He said, well, everyone knows Vera wood can lose 22.45 grams per galactic mile, unless, of course, the tree was cut down when the north side of the sun was facing away from the moon's southern face. Then it's anyone's guess.
Super Dave would later answer the question why man will never land on the sun. He originally said something about they could go in the winter when it was colder, but we'll leave that up for another day. Go ahead, Frick.
Okay, so this one comes from Facebook, and it comes from William H. Casey. We're broadcasting on Facebook tonight as well. And he says, when cutting dovetails, what is the best tool to assist with cleaning out fibers at the line you make with the marking gauge?
What is the best tool to use? Read that last part again for me.
What is the best tool to assist with cleaning out fibers at the line you make with the marking gauge? And he says, would it be the shoulder plane?
Oh, is he talking about the? You know what? What's his name? William.
William, yeah.
William, I need you to kind of rephrase that because I'm not, and I'm looking at Jake's got a puzzled look on his face too. I'm not quite following the circumstance. Ask that again, and Frick will watch for it. But you're gonna have to reword it because I'm not quite following you, so I can't give you an answer.
Okay.
Go on to the next.
Yeah, okay, so this one comes from Kurt Gardner in Utah.
Hey, Kurt.
And he says, I already have a low angle Veritas jack plane bought before I discovered you, and I'm wanting to get a Wood River plane for shooting board work. I know you recommended a 5.5, but I've also noticed that the vets are sent home with a 6. For my situation, would a 6 be a good way to go?
Well, let me tell you why we do what we do. 5.5 on the left, 6, and 7. Jake, am I allowed to say anything about this?
You can say whatever you want to say. You're a free man. This is a free country.
This? About that?
Sure.
Or should I save that surprise for when they're actually ready?
Build the hype.
Yeah, we got 800 people here. Let's do it.
Have we?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about this first.
Mention it in passing.
Luther's not here.
I'm dying to tell you about it. I'm so excited about this.
When the hens away,
But
the
let's do
chickens
this
will
first. So, by the way,
Reversible
interesting
plane.
little
That's the
note. You'll notice that on the 7, the 6, and the 5.5, same front knob, same rear
Also
tote.
4.5.
Yeah, 4.5, but same lever cap, same blade chip breaker, same frog, same everything. All these parts are interchangeable. They all take a 2 3/8 inch wide blade. So if you're going to fill your stable with planes, to keep that in mind.
Which we recommend over horses.
Yes. Here's your 4.5, which completes the line of 2 3/8 inch wide blade. Now, what's so unique about this? Well, you know that I really like a high angle blade for dealing with highly figured woods. Make one high angle blade with your chip breaker, keep it in your tool tray like I do, right over here, and it'll fit any one of these planes. Nice that they're all interchangeable. Same blade can be used in any of them. All right, put this away. Now, I'm going to measure these for you. So the 5.5 comes in at 14 3/4. The 6 comes in at 17.5. And the 7 comes in at 22. There's not a whole lot of difference between the 5.5 and the 6. We give the vets the 6 and the 4.5 simply because this one is a little more difficult to put in your luggage to take home. They show up here and then they've got to take these literally ton of tools back home with them. And we just thought, you know what? This is close enough to being a jointer that when you factor in the traveling thing, it's probably a little bit better. It's what we're looking for is a plane that's going to work extremely well on the shooting board. This is a shooting board in case you're tuning in for the first time. This is probably the most used piece of equipment in my shop-made piece of equipment outside of my bench. And you want to be able to use it so that you can square off timber by positioning the piece of wood against the fence, known to be square, and with a plane that is both heavy and long, you can power right through that end grain and get a perfectly square cut. Now, if you try to do that operation with a 4.5, you're up against a couple of problems. Number one, when you're lacking weight, and this is a heavy cut. You remember, you're cutting through end grain. It's going to be tougher than any other cuts on that piece of wood. You can't start back here. It's always nice to have a run at it. You can't start back here because the chance that you're going to actually line up there is pretty slim. So you have to be engaged with the wood. See how much length we have here versus how much we have here? So the longer the sole is, the more run you're going to be able to get at it before the blade engages the wood and you start to encounter that resistance. Now, the number 7, holy smokes, look at that. I can get a ton of run at it. However, here's the problem. If I have this over here on this for this tool and it's too big and cumbersome to be using general purpose on the bench, so I'm going to have a second plane. My bench is usually cluttered like you see it now. So if I can get one plane that will do both this job and that job, that's ideal. The number 7 loses in that game because while it's excellent on the shooting board for both its length and its weight, it is too cumbersome to be using to be planing the end or a little piece of wood like that. 5.5 is actually ideal. The 6 is not bad. It's great in the shooting board, maybe even a little bit better than the 5.5. A little bit bigger, a little bit more cumbersome than the 5.5, but doable. Not that much different. I would go, first choice, I would go with the 5.5. That would be a 51%. This is 49. So you're not going to be out much in either one, but my preference is always going to be on the 5.5. Now, let's do it right now. So I want to introduce you to something that, shoot, I really need those 2 planes. Where's Rex? Oh, just let me go. I'll grab them myself. It's quicker.
Frick, play some music or something.
Do a commercial. Well, you're supposed to be in there so that when I need you, you're around.
Nope. There's the crickets.
Okay, here's a couple of 5.5 since we're on that theme that date back. This one probably dates back to the early part of the last century, and this one, actually, you know what? These dates are, the patent date is the same on both of them, but I'll show you a little bit of a difference.
But patent date doesn't mean manufactured.
No, but the patent dates were, patents were renewed or changed or whatever. Okay, so here's an original Stanley 5.5 bedrock, really great plane. The weak link, particularly for anybody that's over 60, is the adjuster knob. Why? Well, you have to have the lever cap, this piece, tight enough to hold that blade in place so it does not accidentally shift when you're planing. However, you still have to be able to make lateral adjustments to get it perfectly lined up with the sole, and you need to be able to advance and retract so that you can take a heavier or a thinner shaving. And moving that adjuster knob is a difficult process, particularly if it's too smooth because there's just no grip. And if you think that one was difficult, look at this one. Little tiny knob on there. When I make this, I have to have 2 hands on there in order to manipulate it. It's very, very difficult. When I went to work for Woodcraft, I specified that I wanted a large diameter, as large a knob as we could find to increase the leverage. And I wanted the knurling to be heavy so that you could actually get a good bite with your fingers. I wasn't satisfied with what they did. By the way, you are limited in how big that can be because if it's too big, you can't get at that center screw that you use to move your frog forward and back. Having to reach around, it just doesn't fit. I have told people to take a file, a triangular file, and cut deeper grooves in there, and that solved the problem somewhat. However, I dreamt this up a while ago, and we finally have brought it to market. Introduced the Plane Adjustar, ADJUSTAR. A 5-spoke, large diameter. By the way, the big bonus is now when it comes time to adjusting your plane, you can get right in between the spokes and you can almost get direct access to that. But when it comes to making adjustments, it is so much easier to spin your finger, or spin that star with your finger. On the shooting board in particular, you just reach in there and move that up or down. It's a dream come true. Ken took one home the other day and said, I love it. Super excited about this. I think it's going to make it, particularly if you've got arthritis and your hands are just not what they used to be, that you're going to find this is going to make planing. It's going to take that one part of planing that has always been somewhat of a nuisance and eliminate it. So those will go on the site
Before the end of the month.
Before the end of the month. They're packaged. They're all ready to go. We're just waiting for Luthi, who's out gallivanting in the woods, to get the page built so we can offer them for sale.
It's a 50% increase in diameter.
50 over this. Yeah. It's just, it'll solve the
Wood
problem.
River and Lee Nielsen.
Yeah, oh yeah, all right. So they will fit, the new Adjustar will fit the Not the 4.
Not the 4.
Oh, no. It'll fit the 4.5, the 5, the 5.5, the 6, and the 7 on the Wood Rivers. There's 2 different, the pitch on the threaded rod is different on Lee Nelson's than on the Wood River. So we have 2 versions. We have one that fits Lee Nelson planes and one that fits Wood Rivers. It will not fit the number 4 Wood River or the number 3 Wood River. Okay? Same with the Lee Nelson. Just there wasn't enough room in there. So you can buy either version. All right, let me know what you think of the idea. Love to hear some instant feedback.
Yeah, they seem to like it so far.
Yeah.
Will it work with a left-hander? Sneaky Pete wants to know.
Yes. Either side.
Okay, so next question comes from James Levitt in Oregon. He says, I've not seen you dry off your sharpening stones in any sharpening videos. Is that not necessary because of the hone rate, or do you just do it off camera at the end of the day?
Which is to suggest that I do my dishes as well? The answer to that is no. Yeah, the hone rate evaporates without leaving any rust. You know what? I'm very much a type A, and to stop and clean that all up, that just would not be me. I get an idea in my head and I go to work on it, and that's why I'm here sometimes till 2 o'clock in the morning working, because I can't let it go. But I'm not the one that goes and tidies things up. So fortunately, we found hone right. It evaporates before it starts to oxidize and rust the metal, so that's the reason why. And no, I do not clean them at night. Next.
Okay, so we got a little bit of clarification from William.
Okay, William, let's try this again.
Okay, so he says you use a shoulder. Oh, I'm getting more messages. You use a shoulder plane in the video to remove the slightest amount of fiber along the line.
No, he's talking about a skew block plane.
Talking about a skew block plane when we're cutting dovetails?
Yep. That way, when the tails are cut, you get right to the line. However, I can't find the shoulder plane and bridge on your site. Does that mean you have a better tool? So maybe that's why he's looking for the...
Well, I'm not 100% clear what he means, but I'm going to go with this. So this is a Lee Nelson number 140. It's called a skew block plane with a removable side plate. I think I actually know where it is. Yeah, right here. So there's a side plate that attaches on there, and you can use it as a block plane, but it's a lousy block plane. That is?
Yeah.
He took mine?
No, you don't have yours. I took his.
No, you took his? So you loosen the screws, take that out. I never use it again, so I don't even have it. So there's your blade exposed. So now when I'm going to cut a dovetail and I want to have that little rabbet on the underside of the tailboard that will allow me to reference the 2 pieces, meaning the tailboard onto the pin board, what I do is I take my marking gauge, which would be set to the thickness of the opposite piece. I scribe the line like so. Then I put this in the vise. Let me just clear the bench a little bit. The bench dog up here. Put this board. I always make sure that it's just barely hanging over. Can't do it here because the fence would interfere, wouldn't allow you to. So it has to be hanging out over the edge. Bring my other bench dog in. Make sure it's sitting flat. Now I've got my blade so that it's parallel to the sole. I sight down there. I'll let you have a look. Can you see? And you have to learn to be able to do this. You got to be able to learn to do that by sight. And this is a bit difficult because when you start adjusting that blade and bringing it out, there's nothing to hold it in place. It may want to wander one side or the other because you've got an open side. But you get that blade parallel to the sole, and I always prefer to have my blade protruding out beyond the edge of the plane. Now, I got the fence, and I'm looking at that so that I want the blade to be cutting right on the gauge line. Now this is a situation where if you happen to go the slightest amount beyond, you're going to lose that nice clean shoulder. because if that blade goes beyond the shoulder on that cut line, it's going to leave a ragged cut. If you're too far this way, you're going to be left with some material in the corner. That might be what he's referring to. But if you get it set just exactly where it needs to be, you take a nice pass. I always say 2 or 3 light passes allow more control than trying to do it with one heavy one. Now, I've got a little bit of a ledge right there that will reference my 2 pieces. You know, when the tailboard and the pinboard are put together like that, that little shoulder references the 2, so it's exactly where you want it. You always have to check this, by the way. Take a straight edge, hold it on there like that with the light, and what you see, that little gap at the end, must be uniform, meaning this surface, while lower than this one, must be parallel. In other words, you put your joint together and it's not going to fit the way you want. In order to keep things square, that has to be maintained parallel. Hopefully that was what you're talking about, and if it's not, clarify again. We're here for another hour and a bit. Go ahead for it. Next.
All right, next one comes from Scott in Peru, Illinois. He says, does feathering the corners of your 5.5 plane blade affect squaring stock on the shooting board?
That's a good question, Scott. It could, but mine doesn't, and the reason is that the feathering that I do, and what he's referring to, in case somebody isn't sure, when I'm sharpening my plane blade, I want to keep the edge perfectly straight from there to there. Straight is defined as the shortest distance between 2 points, no curves. On the very last stone, as my second to last procedure, on the 16,000 grit stone, I will spend 3 seconds pushing down a little harder with this finger than these 3, and then I'll spend 3 seconds pushing down a little harder with this finger than these 3. And that creates a very slight feathering on the outside corners. Barely detectable. Last step, of course, is taking off the back, is using the Charlesworth ruler trick on the back bevel. Now, what that does is allow you to make multiple passes on a wide board so that you can't feel the overlaps. The question is, on the shooting board, does that create an issue whereby when now shooting the end of a piece of wood, is that blade down there going to be different than it is on the rest of it? And the answer is yes, if you allowed your feathering, up here, if you allowed your feathering to start too far in. However, I will say this. Pardon?
If it was
Well,
more
that's the reason
camber.
why David and I disagree on this. He likes to have a slight camber on his blades. I don't. So in this case, I have never had it be an issue. I don't make my feathering extreme. And the end of the blade is actually sitting down here a little bit lower. It's not right there. So if you were to look and see where is this piece of wood actually engaging the blade, it would probably be up here about, I don't know, maybe as much as 1/8 of an inch in from the edge. So for that reason. And if you're worried about it, you can actually build your shooting board so that this top piece is a little bit thicker. So instead of engaging the blade here, you're engaging the blade somewhere up here. If you've noticed issues with it. Good question. Next.
Really quick question. Does the adjuster fit on old Stanley planes?
No, sorry.
However,
Oh, what?
we are working to amend that.
Yeah. So the problem is that Wood River uses the same, and this is a little bit complicated because remember these are reverse threads with a different pitch. And the Wood Rivers use the same ones on all their planes, and Lee Nelson used the same ones on all their planes. I can't say the same thing for Stanley, but we are working to possibly do that. But wow, I mean, Stanley planes were made in different places, and they weren't always, it was not precision made equipment, put it that way. So for right now, Wood Rivers and Lee Nelson's. Next.
Irvin says hi, by the way.
Irvin?
Irvin, first episode, tune in. So
Is it? Irv? Thought you were coming home. Now I hear you're not.
all right, so
Your mother would like you to.
this next one comes from Fred Herman in Victoria. He says, I noticed the dovetails on your bench appear deeper than what could be cut with the regular
Yes.
dovetail saw. How did you cut them?
Fred, so you'll notice that these are, oh, where's my tape? So when I made that cut, I would have had to go in, I would have had 2 1/4 inches available. And my medium tenon
2.
cuts 2. My large tenon, I have the capacity. However, over here on this one, I would have needed 3 1/8, and I don't have that. So when we actually made this bench, if you go back and watch the video, we did one using the band. We did variations so everybody could see different methods of doing it. We did one with the tenon saw. We did one on the band saw. We did one. I think we did one using a panel saw, a rip panel saw, which obviously there's no limit there. So I can't remember which one we did which, but you could go back, get a membership on my online workshop, and it's all on there. Showed the whole thing. Next.
All right, next one comes from Tom in the San Francisco Bay Area. He says, I've got a 1 1/4 chisel that doesn't have a flat back. I can't return it. I've tried for several hours to flatten it using the 1000 grit diamond stone, but I can see that I have many, many hours to go. It seems like flipping the diamond stone over and working the coarse side is a better alternative, and then coming back to the fine grit side. Any downside to that?
First of all, if it's a Wood River product, they're guaranteed. You can return them for any reason. If I bought a chisel and it was severely out of flat, I would say, okay, that's a defect. Because the job of the manufacturer is to get it to you as close to being ready as possible. They're not going to hone them for you. You couldn't afford that. Nor do you want somebody else doing those fine points. That would be like me hiring someone to cut my dovetails. That's not going to happen. We stand alone in this in a lot of ways. We sell our tools ready to be used out of the box with the exception of chisels. It's up to you to go in and hone the back and get it the way you want. That's just a long process. However, if it's severely out of flat, I'd return it. They'll do it for you. And if it came from us, we'd do it for you. Your other question was, could you start with a coarse grit? Yes, you can. You can start with the 300 grit side of the trend and then move to the 1000. But I've always said, if you have to go to 300, you probably got a bad chisel. When you buy your chisels, spend as much money as you can find, because those are tools that you will never replace. There's nobody young enough that's going to wear out a chisel. And it's such a critical tool that it needs to be, you don't want to scrimp. I can't imagine trying to do anything with cheap chisels because it's a pain. If you've got to go back and sharpen them after every couple of whacks, just no, don't do that. Buy yourself some IBCs. Get a hold of Jake, order some IBCs. Here's all you need. You can get away with, I would say 3. A 1/4, a 1/2, and a 3/4. If you want to add to it, fine. After the 1/4, 1/2, and 3/4, I would go to the 8. Do we now have them available?
Yeah.
And they're back in stock. Willie just delivered how many?
40. I think we're down to 35-ish.
So we had 40 of them delivered yesterday, so there's 35, so you still got a chance to get a hold of one. And those are the ones that we make ourselves. Well, we start with a 1/4 inch IBC. You're not going to get a pink ivory handle, so don't even ask. Make your own.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Coming soon. So these are just, yeah. I always say, if you're restoring something that belonged to your grandfather and there's sentimental reasons, then by all means, do whatever you have to do to restore it. But if you're being cheap and saying, I'm just going to go buy this at a flea market, you know what? You're wasting your time. Buy the tools. Spend your effort and time building stuff. If you're going to spend your effort and time just trying to get your tools to work, you'll be exhausted by the time it comes to building something. Frick, next. Rapid fire.
All right. This one comes from Brian F. in North Dakota.
Hey, Brian.
He says, can stop dado cuts be done with only a chisel? Also, if someone messed up, didn't account for stopping the dado for a box bottom, and cut the groove full length end to end with a table saw, what's a good way to fix that other than starting over?
Is he asking for a friend?
He's asking for a friend.
Yes, you can cut a stop dado with a chisel. And I've done it before, but you know what? It's not easy because it's a lot of work. You can only take a little bit off at a time. The way I would do it is use your marking gauge to establish the left and the right side of that groove, yeah? And then you gotta come in, you gotta remove the material in between. I would also go to the end. Let me actually do this. This might be fun. We'll use this piece of, cedar for that very reason.
That has not been stained. That is cocobolo dust.
That is?
Yeah.
Really? All right, so what I would do, you know what, Jake? I should get one in another rod with the thing turned around. Mm-hmm. So this would be the upper side of my groove. Now, in order to do this, you want to always have the square shoulder to the outside. So if I try to then position this, Rex, go in and grab me a marking gauge rod, cutter and rod. It's in the little tubes, you know what I'm talking about? Not the marking gauge, but just how they buy them like this. Please and thank you. If I now come in and set that at 1/4 of an inch and do it like that, here's the problem. I'm going to have the bevel on that side, which isn't going to be very neat. When you go to put your bottom in, it's going to show a chamfer, which doesn't look very pretty. Whereas on this side, it's going to show a nice, tight fit. So what I'll do is go in here.
You can put your finger on that screw.
So Ahmed was wondering why you guys don't hire Super Dave to make the cuts
On the dovetail?
on the dovetails.
Because he didn't make the cut.
And Super Dave said, Ahmed, you will notice that when Rob cuts his dovetails now, Jake just shows his hands, and you might notice those hands look a lot like mine.
Super Dave has got to get off the bottle. So
But it's nice to finally be appreciated.
is that because his wife has booted him out to the chicken coop again? Okay, so what I've done is I've turned my cutter around. Now, what you have to be aware of is this. If you're not paying attention when you do this, this is going to wander. See how that's going to wander off on you? Because the way the cutter is designed is the bevel, it pushes the tool in a particular direction. With it turned around and you pull it through the wood, the bevel causes the tool to go this way, keeping the head of the tool tight to the edge of the board. When it's turned around, it pushes it away from it. Well, you got to be aware of that. Now I'm gonna get this a little bit closer. So all I can do now is push really hard this way. Start off making a very, very light cut. And just gradually get it a little deeper. You make them, you let go or back off, and the least it'll jump and ruin it for you. This is also where I would like to. So here's, really? We use this size of. Don't we cut these down?
Yeah, Rex, what are you doing?
So you can buy the cutter like that on a rod. So what I'm suggesting is you get one of those. I'm going to grab one for myself, and I'm just going to turn the cutter around. So instead of having to do this, I can just whip one out and put another one in. But this is also where it's advantageous. I'm a huge fan of marking gauges. They're such an underrated tool. See with that large 5-inch diameter cutter? That would allow me to go in and make that cut even deeper, which is going to take away from the amount of work I'm going to have to do with my chisel. And I would flip it around and I would do the same thing. Now, if I'm going to stop it there, I would come in with my chisel and I would Manola here?
Yeah.
Is it 8:15?
Yes.
Really? Oh, we didn't have Megan talk yet.
We're figuring that out. Don't worry.
Okay. So I would come in. I should have measured that because I think that groove is awful close to 1/4 inch.
So you're basically creating a hollow?
What I'm doing is I'm creating a definite stop so that when
Is this board cup?
oh yeah. It's that wet cedar that we had. How are our donations doing, Megan?
Good.
Yeah, where are we?
Still in the process of adding.
Okay. All right, so there's where I would end. Now, if you're going to come in with it and do this with a chisel, remember the question was, how can we cut a stopped groove by hand? Can we do it with a chisel? Now, if I were new at this, I would come in and I would put a couple of blocks like so. I would clamp those blocks right on there to protect that edge, because the amount of work that you're going to have to do to come in here and gradually remove all that material, it's almost inevitable that at some point you're going to bump into one of those sides and make a mess of it. By creating this wall, ending this, at least I'm going into that end grain wall each time I make my cut, and I'm not... it's staying nice and neat. Now I grabbed an 1/8 inch chisel simply because it's going to be a lot easier to get rid of this material if I'm not having to worry about keeping the chisel perfectly between those two. Remember, that just fits down in there. That'd be fine for the final cleanup pass. But for the hogging out, I'd want to go in with an 1/8 inch chisel, an IBC 1/8 inch chisel made by Wonder Boy Willie. And then I would come in and do the final cleanup with the full widths. Now I chose cedar. You're not going to get anything easier to chisel than this. If you're doing this in a piece of maple, you can quadruple the time it's going to take you. And then of course, if you're having to get, see, this is where it becomes a problem. If you're having to get a specific depth, well, being very difficult to do that with a chisel. That's when you want to come in with a router plane and do it. But it's possible by chisel, but be patient and take those little precautions that I just shared with you, and it'll make it easier. Okay, next.
Are we answering another question?
Well, let's have, this is really important, so let's turn it over to Megan and have her put the camera on.
We're waiting. I'm waiting for a video from Megan, actually.
Are you? Okay, all right.
Yes.
Question. What, is it 1/4 Is Manoli ready?
It's 20 after.
20 after?
I don't know if he's ready. I have a question if he's not.
Ask it.
Come in as soon as you're ready.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead, ask the question.
All right, this one comes from David in Ohio. He says, I'm looking at buying either a number 7 or a number 8 joiner plane. Do you favor one over the other? If so, why?
For the same reasons that I just showed, the number 8 uses a 2 5/8 inch wide blade. Not that there's a problem with that, but now you've got that orphan. So everything you do has to be done specifically for that. If you have a number 7, and if you're talking about, this is 22 inches, that's 24. Not that big of a difference. 2 5/8 blade, 2 3/8. So for the economics of it, I would stick with the 7 because it fits in all the rest of your planes. This is $500.
Right.
But I like it.
You use it a lot.
I have it. Yes, I do. Would I go out today and buy it? I probably wouldn't have. But I already had it because I had that long before Wood River even came along.
It's also a lot heavier. It's great. It's
yeah. You know what? If you got a $500 bill that you're not worrying about, go ahead and get one. You'll love it. But if you're having to work within a budget, then I would say the number 7. You got a money tree, get yourself a number 8. You'll love it. It's a great piece of kit, and Lee Nelson's the only one that makes it, and they do a wonderful job on it. And it is a difficult thing to do, to mill that big hunk of metal and get everything nice and flat, but they do it, and they do it well.
But it will sail through the end grain.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like having a 500 horsepower car. Nothing's going to stop it. Yeah? Haircut, brother.
I didn't actually cut my hair. I just tried a different style. I
Stopped it from growing?
gel.
Brill cream?
Brill cream. I combed it real slick to one side, but I thought that looked a little too.
No sunglasses. We had some guy giving you a hard time last week about wearing sunglasses. Obviously, he doesn't know who Roy Orbison is. Okay, pause the questions. I'm going to introduce Manoli, if you don't already met him. Miss Manoli Kumbayez. Been a friend. I can remember when he was almost born. Not quite that long. But he grew up with my brother Randy. We live in the same neighborhood. I've known his family for years. And Manoli is an incredible musician, as you'll hear. Everybody that hears him always keeps asking me to bring him back. That's why we keep bringing him back. But he's here for a reason. So the East Tennessee Luthiers Guild, headed up by, oh my goodness,
Paul.
Paul Rigning. Paul put together the East Tennessee Luthiers Guild. They built this guitar. They presented it to me and said, Rob, we'd like to donate this to you to auction off to support the Purple Heart Project, which I thought was great. And one of the local companies actually provided all the case and the candy that's in there. Now that we're selling it, Paul said they're going to build us another one, which is awesome because they just want Manoli to keep coming back. But it's a lovely guitar, and it's going to find a home tonight. So Manoli's going to play 3 original songs between now and the end of our show, and enjoy it.
Don't take the Bowery boys to the brothel. They'll bring the medicine home to you. Walking through tombstones, I've tried to make my bones, and I'm tired of getting stoned, sleeping all alone. Gotta find a phone to call my dad. And I thought that my withdrawal was a bad one. I lost the best friend if I had one. Walking through tombstones, I've tried to make my bones, and I'm tired of feeling stoned, sleeping all day long. Gotta find a phone to call a friend, and God be with me one more day. He's got a crucifix to carry. I'm tired of all your lies and your pride. You won't blind my bedroom eyes. Still my gypsy heart. Oh, oh, child. I'm on the highway, with the West behind me. I face the eastern edge, oh, so clearly. Oh, oh, yeah, little town up now. Come on up now,
Todd, I swear. What a beautiful spirit that wood has. Thanks very much, Rob.
Yeah, come back in about 20 minutes.
Sure.
You just stick around, but
I think
we'll do
there's a
another
place
one.
to get ice cream next door.
There was. Thanks, Manoli.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Could be yours. Yeah. Now, actually, let's. Are we ready for
No,
Megan? No. Okay, give
It's
me
not-
another question.
It's not working for me. Okay. This one is from Mark in Virginia. I have an IBC plain blade chip breaker for an old Stanley, and I cannot advance the blade enough as the chip breaker hits the lever cap screw.
I'm sorry, you got to say this slowly because I got to envision what he's saying. Do it again.
Okay. I have an IBC plain blade / chip
IBC blade chip breaker set. Yeah.
for an old Stanley,
Yeah.
and I cannot advance the blade enough as the chip breaker hits the lever cap screw. I moved the frog and filed the mouth, but to get the blade to reach to take a shaving, I have to have the chip breaker more than 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the blade.
Okay. Mark, it is?
Mark from Virginia, yep.
All right, Mark, no problem. First of all, let me explain. Rex, bring me back one of those Stanley planes, please.
Tell him to grab the 6. Because that fits
He's
in.
not going to know what the 6 is. He's not been around long enough. So when we designed these, or when I designed this blade chip breaker set, the problem with the old Stanleys, okay, good, I got them. The problem with the old Stanleys is that they used a very thin blade. In fact, I'll show you right here. We'll measure it. I think that's about 78 thousandths of an inch in thickness. See if I'm close. We're zeroed in.
Ooh.
Oh, it's actually less than that, 69 thou. So that little thin blade had to have some support. So the chip breaker, which has a gap, touches back here and right up here. The chip breaker was designed to help support that very thin blade and prevent it from chattering as it goes through hard wood. The yoke right here, which connects to what will soon be a adjustar, has to pass through the blade in order to make it to the chip breaker. When you spin your adjustar, am I overdoing it? It retracts and advances the blade. So if you think about it, the single biggest problem with the performance of this plane is this thin blade. And you can eliminate 98% of the problems by increasing to a thick blade. Now that one was 69 thou. This one is 144 thou. Double, more than double. Here's the problem. Put this in, and all of a sudden, that small little yoke doesn't make it through. So now it doesn't contact the slot in the chip breaker, and you can't get any advance and retract mechanism. It negates this altogether. So the idea I had was just add a couple little tabs of metal to the underside so that when you put them together, instead of this having to come all the way through, this goes down and meets it, allowing you to put, look at that. You're now dealing with 266 thousandths of an inch versus 130 thou. Double the amount of metal.
1/4.
Okay. Now, so Mark's problem was this. And our problem was the fact that these were made, some were made in Mexico, some were made in England, some were made in various places in the United States, some were made in Canada. And it just was not a precise instrument. It's almost like they just used up parts. So we could make this fit maybe 8 out of 10 planes, but the other 2 it didn't, for various reasons. The one thing you're probably going to have to do is you're going to have to open up your throat. That throat was made for that thin blade. You put a big thick blade in there, Actually, this is the
5.5.
yeah, this is the 5.5 one. They used the 2 1/4 inch blade. They switched in 1939 to a 2 3/8, so I can't even demonstrate that. But when you put that big thick blade, you probably have to open up your throat in order to get it out there. Now, Mark's problem is that he doesn't have the travel here in order to get the blade to go out if you keep your chip breaker right up at the edge. Mark, he's already discovered, pull the chip breaker back, and now, because remember, the positioning, advance and retract, is controlled right here. So if the chip breaker stays in place and you move the blade forward, you're going to have lots of blades sticking out. The question is it going to make a difference? And the answer is no. Why do I say that, and how can I say that? I don't have an example sitting right here, do we? I haven't got the 62. But low angle planes, like the 62, the 164, the block plane, do not have chip breakers. They're a bevel up plane. There is no chip breaker, and yet they perform just fine. There's an awful lot of talk about what a chip breaker does. I'm one that doesn't believe it. And yeah, I saw the video on the Japanese video. I still don't believe it. You can't tell me that when you're taking a half a thou shaving, supposedly the chip breaker forces the shaving to go this way. You're taking a half a thou shaving, doesn't matter which way you bend it, that it's going to have any impact on the surface? Nah, hogwash, I say. What will change it is closing the throat, increasing the pitch. That's a different topic for another question. In this case, pull your chip breaker back, try it out, and if it works, and it works great, then don't worry about it. Just leave it where it is. Don't be overly concerned with the position of the chip breaker. And other than that, try it on another Stanley and it'll work. Okay, question?
Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties here. Yeah, I think we're going to have to do that. Anyway, I had another question from Facebook. This is more of a personal question. He says, this is from Al Dunlop. And he says, hey, Rob, thanks for everything you do for the woodworking community.
Honor and a privilege.
If you could have picked a different profession, what would it be?
A bum. Yeah, I mean, gee. Great country to be. What would I have been? I wanted to be a sailor. I worked on a tugboat right out of high school, and I absolutely loved it. Loved it. But it's a type of job where you're typically gone 3-6 months at a time. Was not a family career. But I loved the sea. I lived next to it. I loved boats. I wanted to be a boat builder. But one day I hit my head and I realized, you know what? If you starved as building furniture, the advantage of being a boat builder is you would starve quicker and get the pain over with. So that's why I am where I am. I was going to be a physiotherapist, but that dream died real quick as soon as I went to work volunteering in a PT department. No thanks. Wasn't for me. Okay, so I'm going to introduce Megan. Megan's coming from the outside in terms of this family project that we have. But the unique part that Megan brings to the table is she's a U.S. citizen. She's born in Utah. And of the 88 vets that we've had to date, we've had 1 Aussie, Ash. We've had 4 Canadians, Kyle, Jesse, Sean, and big guy, Josh. The rest have all been, and Paul. Yeah, but Paul wasn't a combat wounded vet in terms of our scholarship. The rest have been Americans. So Megan really took to this. She has a relative who served in Iraq, and she wanted to participate. She wanted to be able to help, because anybody that's around this, you can't be around these guys without not wanting to pitch in and do something. We have members of the community. We have people. It's infectious. So this is really close to her heart. I know she really enjoys doing it, and it's just fantastic. So what I want you to do is I just want her to tell from her perspective what she sees happen over a week. I tell people all the time, we witness miracles every time we do this. How do you change someone's life in 5 days in a wood shop? That is somebody that's dealing with problems so severe that a good majority of them have already planned out their suicides at some point, and yet somehow we managed to intervene. Who knows? You know, I think of Kevin's story. Go read it on our website, and you'll get some understanding. And Kevin's been on here. You've met him. So I'm just going to turn time over to Megan and let her tell you from her side of it what she thinks. Jake, Megan's over there.
All right. Well, of course, Rob picks like the 1 week where I look super grungy, and I'm not prepared for this. But the Purple Heart Project has often frustrated me, and it frustrates me because every year when the classes roll around, these guys come in, and you know they're super reserved and hard when they come in, and then you just watch throughout the week how that changes and the camaraderie that's felt, and the really truly the miracles that are seen, and it frustrates me because I want the world to know about it. I want to find, you know, you hear of their struggles and the darkness that they face. And it so frustrates me because I think of all of the other veterans out there that are facing the same darkness, these same battles. And we haven't found them yet, or, you know, we're not able to take them in because we're at capacity, and we don't have the manpower and the money and everything to bring in 100, 200 of these guys a year. And that's what frustrates me so much. And in fact, it was in one of these moments of frustration that I was bawling because I'm a baby. And I went out to my car and I didn't know what to do. And I just started recording a video of myself. I don't know what I was going to use it for or the purpose of it, but I feel like it's me telling a story about one of the vets we had who came in and was probably one of the most reserved vets that we had that first day, and just the experience that we experienced with him. So we couldn't really get it to work super well. So
I have it on the
okay, Jake Burke has it on the mic.
Can you zoom in here?
I'm crying throughout it, so I'm sorry, but it just sums up better how I feel about it all.
So I had to step out to compose myself, and it's the first day of the Purple Heart Project, and I'm already like this. But this is my first time crying, and I'm pretty sure Rob's already cried at least 10, so he has me beat. But I just wanted to hop on here and share an experience from this morning. The first day, we hand out all the tools that have been donated. So each vet gets around $3,000 worth of tools. And the Rob Cosman team hands them out. We just pass them out. And as I was handing this older Vietnam vet his dovetail saw, I could just see this look of overwhelming disbelief and shock and gratitude on his face. And I could see that he was fighting tears. And I noticed that he stepped outside because, these men typically don't let people see them cry. And a little while later, he stepped in and he got Rob's attention, and he brought Rob over into a corner, and he stuttered to get the words out as he said, I don't understand. I don't understand why you're doing this, because you're not a vet yourself. And everyone that I've ever tried to seek help from has had an ulterior motive. And as I'm sitting here listening to you, I've been trying to figure out your ulterior motive all day. And he said I can't understand why you don't have one. Because people don't do this. And that just broke my heart, because it is so wrong that we have these freedoms because of these men and these women that go and risk their lives, that go and sacrifice, that go and put themselves in harm's way day in and day out, only to come home and suffer more. They suffer for us. They sacrifice for us so that we can sit here and fight about politics and fight about climate change and fight about all the other issues that are going on. And here they are putting themselves on the line so that we can enjoy those freedoms. And then they come home and they suffer for so long, and they suffer in silence, and it's not right. And that's why I am so grateful to be a part of the Purple Heart Project and its mission to sincerely help these men and these women that suffer.
So, yeah, I always thought I was a grateful, patriotic American. I can tote my flag just as much as the next guy. But it wasn't until I heard their stories and heard about their bravery both on the battlefield and when they came home. And the things that they face are raw and they're real, and you can't hear about them and not recognize how ungrateful you really truly have been. And that's what's so amazing about the Purple Heart Project is we don't, the whatever happens in this week that has truly saved people, and these people that deserve saving so much because they put their lives on the line for us. And yes, that's all I got. Sorry.
Thank you. Would that have anything to do with somebody named Pete? Is he on tonight?
I don't think I've seen him. He could be, but I could have missed him.
Don't get to watch it. I remember that. Yeah, we need smaller tear ducts during those weeks. Question, Frick. Change the subject for us. Thank you, Megan.
All right. Let's see.
So we're at 1,400.
People or money?
That's good. And we're at 909 right now. We have reached 1,000, but some people had to go. All right, so this next one comes from Dan Haffey in Detroit, Michigan. He says, for creating the rabbit... Oh, my microphone's too loud. For creating the rabbit on your dovetail drawers, do you have another method you could recommend that doesn't use a skew block plane, preferably using more common tools?
Let me show you one. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it'll still work. I'm going to show you its limitations. Somebody shared this with me. By the way, this automotive refinishing masking tape is really good stuff. It's 5/1000 of an inch thick, where regular masking tape is 4 thou. So if you take and you put several pieces on, that's probably enough. And then leave it to Megan to make us all cry. By the way, if I can add to her story just a little bit, that guy that she's talking about turned out to be the life of the party. When he stood up to introduce himself, he had us all laughing and crying at the same time. He's gone home, and it's made a huge impact in his life. I know he's told me, and his family. And he's just a super guy. You've met him. His name is Pete. So, several layers of masking tape. Set your marking gauge. Go in and scribe your line. And then peel that off. And that will give you the same effect. Now, you can then use that, and it'll work just like a regular rabbit does. Peel it off when you're done. It's not what I don't like about it is it tends to be a little bit sticky sometimes, but it'll do the job. And that is probably the best solution next to the skew block plane that you're going to get.
It does not replace it, though.
I would still say the skew block plane is number 1. That's number 2. All right. Well, I find a Kleenex. Ask me the next question, Frick, please.
We have 12 minutes left. Did you want to bring Manoli in for another one, or?
Really? It's that late?
It's 8:48 our time, yeah.
Holy smokes. We're having such a good time. Yeah, give me one more question. I'll tell them to come in.
Okay. This is from Braden H. in Burlington, Vermont. He says, do you apply any rust prevention / oil to your tools after use? If so, what do you use and how often do you apply?
If you're talking about how do you deal with rust or preventing rust in a shop that's not heated, mine's the same temperature year round, so I don't have to worry about that. I don't like using oil because if you use oil, you've got to wipe it off every time. It gathers dust. It's a pain. We have what are called plane sacks. Want to grab one, please? And they come in 4 different sizes, so they'll cover everything from a block plane to a big long jointer. They're They're silicone impregnated. They got a drawstring on them. If you have a shop that is not heated or you have an issue with moisture, aka rust, you simply slide that into the plane sack, zip it up. When you're ready, take it out. You don't have anything to wipe off. It's the most convenient way of doing it. So this is the size for the smoother. So you just open the end. These are on our website. Put that in there. It's like that. Just pull the drawstring and store your plane. I used to use these exclusively when I used to travel doing the wood shows because we dealt with rust the first time and it took us a day to clean up all the planes. It was a mess. Started using these and never had a problem since. Not expensive, absolute best solution for that. Manoli, brother, what do you got?
Well, I have more original music, and I was thinking today, I was listening to some gospel music, and I didn't know what is public domain and what wasn't public domain. And there's some gospel songs that I think are public domain, so I could play some gospel music. You could check it out after, or I could play another original song. I could The Circle Be Unbroken, which was written, actually, the one that you hear Johnny Cash singing and all the country singers doing, Ralph Stanley did the best version. They had their lyrics, they changed it, and it was, so they could collect royalties on it, I'm sure. And it's fantastic, because Led Zeppelin did it and rap artists do it. But in 1907, let me take a look. Ader Halberstam wrote, "May the circle be unbroken." So, inspired by King Solomon's wisdom on the strength of a rope and how 3 strands make it smaller, she envisioned a family circle and how we lose our loved ones sometimes. There are loved ones in the glory whose dear forms you often miss when you close your earthly story. Will you join them in their bliss? Will the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? Is a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky? In the days joyous childhood, our faith told us of wondrous love, pointed to the dying Savior. Now he dwells with him above, where the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by, is a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. You remember songs of heaven which you sang with a childish voice? Do you love the hymns they taught you, or the songs of earth, your choice? And you can picture happy gatherings round the fireside long ago, and you think of tearful partings when they left you here below. Will that circle be unbroken? Bound by, Lord, bound by, is a better home waiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. Woo! One by one, the seats were empty. One by one, they went away. Now the family, it has parted. Will it be complete one day? Will the circle, yes it will, be unbroken? Go on. Bound by, Lord, bound by, hear the better home waiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. Thanks, Rex.
How much time?
We got 4 minutes.
Well, I won't get more into the last one, but I want to explain something. So we, this story's too long. I'll have to do it another night. But we have a man we nicknamed Santa Claus. And Santa Claus just appeared magically. I'm not exaggerating. Several years ago, and just started sending me money. And what he wanted was to just give tools away. Just do a draw, give tools away. But Santa Claus, wanted to cover all the costs, shipping the whole bit. So we did that. And that stretched out into him providing the finances to bring, I think one summer he paid for 5 people to come to our workshop, covered their tuition, airfare, hotel, meals, tools. And he was the guy that helped me take care of Jesse originally. Jesse's the one that started this whole Purple Heart project. And I can't tell the whole story because I got to try to keep a dry eye for the rest of this. But then all of a sudden he disappeared. Just disappeared. Hadn't heard from him. Just resurfaced. He'd had some terrible health issues, but he's back online. He just sent me $1,000 the other day for the Purple Heart project. And I told him something I wanted to do, and he said, yeah, I'll fill in the blanks. So we have a vet that had come to one of our classes, and we give everybody the opportunity to introduce themselves. And sometimes it goes beyond just a brief introduction. But every once in a while, you'll have one of these guys that really, without being able to hold it back, just pours it out. And this guy really, everybody felt it. You got a little glimpse into the struggles that he has endured. He was a forward observer. What that means is he would be out in the front line calling in artillery strikes. And 7 children? He has 7. He and his wife have 7 children. So, you're trying to provide for your family and you're dealing with all of this stuff that just doesn't go away. Great guy. His name's Jake.
Comes with a name.
Not that Jake. And he wanted to get the guitar because he used to play, and he had kind of let it go. And there's a lot to be said for the therapy of music. But his kids are now getting into music, and his wife thought maybe he should do it too. So he thought, well, he'd buy the guitar and make the donation and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. But raising 7 children, I know. So he just said, Rob, I just can't swing it. So I thought, well, why don't we do it for him? So I talked to Santa Claus, and Santa Claus said, yeah, let's settle on a price of $2,500. And so what we did tonight, all the donations tonight are going toward that. And Santa Claus said that he would pick up the difference if there was any. So you still have a chance to take part in this. So we're going to send that guitar that Manoli's been playing, thanks to Paul Rigney, and we're going to send it to Jake. It's coming to you, brother. Enjoy it, and you deserve it, and it's a nice thank you. It's a little thank you from us. So that's where the guitar is going to finally find its final home. So Paul, I hope you got that wood all dried and ready because we need another guitar. How are we? Any more vets to say hello to?
Yeah, quite a few.
Let's do. I'm not in a rush. What's? I'll try to do at least one more question. Okay.
Kevin Smira.
Hey, Kev, brother, how are you? I haven't talked to you in a little bit. Give me a call.
Ebby.
Abby, how's the new home, brother? So Abby and his family just moved. Where'd they go, to Georgia? Where?
Yeah.
Yeah. And his bench is in storage because they're trying to get the house built, I think, actually.
Paul.
Paul Morrison? Mm-hmm. Down in Australia. Hi, Paul.
Charlie Ray.
Charlie Ray, salt of the earth. I say that every time.
And
Charlie, you and Santa Claus are cut from the same cloth. I told him about you. I said at some point you need to meet. You were twins in heaven.
I think that's the right one.
That's it? How are donations?
We're at $1,855.
Okay, that's awesome. And let's do one more question, Frick. Load a good one.
Another pressure.
I enjoy this. I would love to be doing this every week if we could. At least do it every 2 weeks. But I like this. Get a chance to talk about this and do some other good stuff. Have Manoli in, make Megan cry, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Steve from Iowa says, why did you pick a static back versus folded back for your back saws?
Oh, you know what? That's a good question. And I'm going to answer it the easy way. If my saw in the hands of a novice, Philip Gustafson or Marshall Rommel, if they can take that saw that has a solid brass back that's had a slot cut in it, as opposed to a folded brass back, and they can produce that kind of a dovetail, which by most people, anybody's interpretation would be a perfect dovetail, coming right from the saw, no pairing or anything, assembled once with glue. If they can produce that, then why would you need to do anything different to your saw? And I heard all the stories about how the folded brass back holds the blade in tension and blah, blah. You know what? The way we make them, they produce those kind of results. So I was always when I drove poor Dale this crazy because every time he told me to do something this way, I would say, well, why? And I wasn't challenging him. I just want to know the reason why. If you're supposed to do it this way, why? Why do they say set your plane down like that? Well, why? You try to tell me that setting it on a piece of wood is going to dull the blade? That's dumb. Now, if somebody was tearing apart a lawnmower on the same bench before I got there to do woodworking, then yes, I could understand. But I set the plane down whatever way I want. It's mine. And if you think that setting a plane down on a piece of wood is going to dull the blade, you got a bad blade. So we make our saws the way we make them because it's the easiest way to manufacture them, and the results speak for themselves. And beyond that, I can't. There's nothing more to comment on. Give me another question. A recent one?
So we had the idea that we don't think Jake's on, so why don't we call him?
Call him.
Live.
Well, give me a question while you're doing that, can you?
How many hands do you think I
Oh my
have
gosh.
here?
Do you even work over there?
I have no Luther. I'm looking
You're
at four
usually,
screens
you're usually
here.
eating your dinner. Are we interrupting? You miss Luther? Is that what you said? You miss Luther?
I do.
Can we get that? Could we get that recorded?
Here. Can you hear it from there?
Yeah.
Come closer. If he answers, we don't know. This is.
He was on, but I don't think he's still on.
He may not recognize my number either.
Hello.
Jake?
Hey, what's up, Rob?
Hey, we got ice at 9. Can you come?
You got what?
We got the ice at 9. Can you come?
Yeah, I'm on my way.
Hey, listen. So we took all the donations from the broadcast tonight, including a little help from a guy named Santa Claus, and we're sending a guitar your way.
Your what?
And we're sending a guitar your way.
Are you kidding me, Rob?
No, I'm not kidding you. Would I kid about that?
Okay, well then why don't I donate $2,500 or $3,000? I'm donating.
No, that's not the way it works. We're giving this to you. It's our
No.
thank you.
I understand that, but I still want to donate.
Well, you can do it. You can do whatever you want, but we're sending you guitar. So make some beautiful music. Maybe we'll bring you some night instead of Manoli.
Oh, that would be sweet. Don't expect me to sing with it. I don't know how to do that yet, but maybe I will.
Well, you can. I talked about you for a few minutes just at the end, so you'll have to watch it in the recording because you missed it. I gotta go because I gotta wrap this up. But I just want to tell you live that it's it'll be on its way Monday.
Oh. Thanks so much, Rob.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everybody.
You deserve it.
Thanks, Rob.
Make some
You guys
music.
have a great night.
Rex,
See you. What?
All right, bye.
Rex, can you find his little bunny?
Oh,
He lost his fuzzy bunny.
All right, we're way over.
okay. So we got to do a draw. We're doing a draw for the marking gauge that Rex made. Woo! Rex, will it cut a straight line? I don't know. It probably fell down
So,
inside my shirt. Okay.
We just had a couple very generous donations,
Oh, really?
and now we are at $4,500.
Oh, wow. Well, I guess Santa Claus gets the night
So-
off.
Thank you, thank you, thank you to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, that is awesome.
All right.
Best audience in the world.
So we should be
Right
giving
here.
away 4 prizes, technically.
So what we're going to give away, yeah, we'll do this. We're going to give away Rex's marking gauge, and we'll give away the black maple resin dovetail saw. How's that, Sue? Is that a good one, Sue? It was her idea.
Okay.
So go ahead, do your draw.
All right, first name, and this is for what? This is for the marking gauge?
This is for the marking gauge.
Okay, the winner of the marking gauge is John Hutchison in Irving, Texas.
Congratulations, John.
And the winner of the saw is
Black resin. Well, how do I say it, Jake? Black.
Resin maple.
The winner is Chris Whiting in New York.
Hey, Chris. Congratulations. All right, Manoli. Is he here? Ask him to come in and give us a send-off with one final song and tell him the guitar's on his way out the door. So I hope you don't mind sticking around a little longer. Tell us what you think. Here's what I'd like to hear from you tonight. Please tell me what you think about our Just Star. I'm so thrilled about that. Let us know what you think about Manoli. By the way, I got to tell you, Manoli's music will be on sale. Let me find out here real quick. Manoli, if we can get him back. Manoli just texted me today, and I'll tell you real quick. His music will be on sale. Bear with me one second. Another week, and my music will be out and on the label. So you'll be able to, we'll make sure that you have a link for that. Special thanks to Frick tonight for giving us a flawless presentation.
Pretty much. Pretty close.
And Jake's getting compliments all the time on his camera work. Special thanks to him. Thank you to Rex, particularly for making that marking gauge. He's been sneaking here at night when I wasn't around, doing things I didn't know he could do. And how can we thank Megan for that incredible testimony that she gave us about Purple Heart? Manoli, tell us a little bit about your music when it's available, please.
It will be available in 2 weeks, and I will send Frick the link to the site, and you can attach it to your videos, and I appreciate you having me on.
Wonderful.
That's good. Yeah.
So you're doing the wrap up tonight. I don't think we're gonna do an encore, but this is it.
I'm gonna miss this guitar. Build another one.
Bill Eyes, won't you listen to what I have to say? The concrete's at your back door. Now we've got nowhere to pray. So lay down here beside me and tell me that you care. Comfort me in my sorrow with your long blonde hair, Evangeline. Rock me in your arms, Evangeline. I'm a fool to your charm, Evangeline. If we said goodbye, Evangeline, it's just your foolish pride. Now I'm picking up the pieces of my broken youth that's been tearing at my heart that you know how to use. Talk to me with kindness and kisses on my face. Now lay down here beside me, I just need a taste. Evangelina, rock me in your arms. Evangelina, I'm a fool to your charm. Evangelina, if we say goodbye, Evangelina, it's just my foolish pride. You're no better, no better than me, and you should let her go free like a bird up in the sky. Evangelina, rock me in your arms. Evangelina, I'm a fool to your charm. Evangelina, now if we said goodbye this time, Evangelina, it's your foolish pride. Woo! Hey, hey, hey. You're gonna shine like the stars, yeah. Oh, yeah.